All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Uh, I'm Michael Tucker, my co-host Warren Stokes, and we are kicking off the first Marketo User Group Roundup for January of the year 2021, which we promise you will be a better year than 2020. I think we're all pretty confident about that. But at the very least, we're going to focus on this month and although interesting Marketo user groups that are starting to come into the forefront, we have some interesting things coming in terms of new international mugs that are joining the fray, new updates that are happening with Marketo, new types of Marketo user groups that are being set up, and we're really starting to see the user group community start to scale out in both content and both in audience. And so, speaking of audience, let me pass it over to Warren Stokes to kind of kick off the event. And Warren, could you introduce our different panelists and kind of tee off their introductions to their individual Marketo user groups?
Yeah, sure. Nice to be here again in New Year, and we've got very talented people with us today. We've got Helen Abramova and Becca Walters with us today. And if you've never been to their user groups, I mean, you guys can speak to it, but I've been on Helen's one. I'm not sure on Becca's one, but a fantastic user group that is. So if you guys want to introduce yourself.
Okay, I can go first. So hi everyone, I'm here in Washington DC metro area under 2 inches of snow, which is a big deal here. And myself, and till now it was another co-leader. She is no longer participating, but she was a huge asset. We've been running Washington DC Marketo User Group. And basically we were trying to bring different topics, different speakers, something that would be interested for us. And we were making assumption that if we are learning, other people are learning as well. And since last year, all meetings were obviously virtual, but still, I believe it was very helpful for us to stay connected and even like having this touch point where we're just like, okay, how's everyone going? Like, are you still there? Like, let's plan maybe in 12 months we'll see each other. But it was very warm and nice, and like this camaraderie that Michael, you are talking about all the time. That was like how it started and how it's keeping going. And hopefully that's gonna be all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope so too. And I think really it's for people like yourself that are consistently doing this and helping to kind of be pillars of our community here that have been invaluable. So we're really glad to have you here, Helena, and and then also just for all the work that you're doing here, helping to kind of cover off all these mugs and be able to kind of spread a lot more insights into different corners of the Marketo user group space. A corner that we don't really look at as often too is the great state of Iowa, which Becca, could you give a little bit of a geography lesson for people that don't know where Iowa is, and maybe recap kind of what you're doing in the Marketo user group space?
Absolutely. I'm Becca Walters. I live in Iowa, which is actually in the very center of the United States, just, south of Minneapolis and the west of Chicago. We'll just put us over there. So I actually got back into a company last March that was setting up Marketo for their company, first time ever Marketo users, and I was able to come in and help admin that. And I'm just trying to get back the Iowa Mug Group back up and running, and really what we need in Iowa, because there are fewer Marketo users, is really more of like that Q&A and that time to bring questions and learn from each other and just really create that collaborative space. So that's what we're doing on the Iowa side and just ramping that back up. So the goal for 2021 is to see Iowa's user group come, full circle and become a lot more collaborative. So I'm excited about that.
Nice, great. And I'm starting to see from the chat here that we're starting to get people that are interested in learning more about the state. So Adele, great. You can consider yourself welcome at any point in time.
It's cold here.
We also have that kind of, middle America friendliness too, that I think a lot of people really appreciate when you get out there. Um, and so a couple of neat things. If you're interested in the Iowa Marketo User Group, reach out to Becca, ping her on LinkedIn, and Becca, I've got a prospective presenter for you actually for a first session to do this quarter. So we take care of our own in the Marketo User Group, and so we'll have a lot more kind of coming in here. You'll get to see more of that too, of other corners of the user group that we're going to cover off today. Okay, great. Well, for those of you who've never been to the Marketo User Group Roundup, it's a little bit different than your typical Marketo User Group session. And really one of the things that Warren and I noted, earlier in the pandemic and the beginning of last year, the two of us were going to all of the different Marketo User Groups around the world. And it was because we had a lot of time, because a lot of different businesses were shutting down, and there was a lot more time available. But now that that's becoming less so, and a lot of things are reopening, and of course the marketing and the digital marketing community never stops, we realize it's a lot of work to be able to keep track of all of the different user group contents that happen in a month. In this month, we have 14 different Marketo user groups, and that's not counting the recurring user groups that happen in the office hours that Inga and Sandy run in New York, for example. And if you combine those by 60 to 90 minutes for each of those meetings, you're really looking at 14 to 21 hours of user group content a month to be able to look at. It's just not practical for busy marketing executives to keep track of all that. So what we're going to do in these sessions every month, the first weekday of every month, Warren and I get together with a rotating panel of speakers, and we try and summarize all the different content that happens in a month for Marketo content into this 1 hour session that you can quickly review and then see what sessions you're interested in watching. And then once you find one that you watch, we encourage you to go to the YouTube channel that we've set up for Marketo Virtual User Groups. You can search this inside of YouTube. You can go to a redirect that I set up from my domain name called conversionstore.com/video. And basically what's happened here is we've set up this one YouTube channel that all Marketo User Group leaders are able to take the recordings of their different sessions and save them onto the YouTube channel. So you could conceivably binge watch enough Marketo content. I think we've got probably a solid week and a half worth of content on there. But every month, new Marketo user group leaders are continuing to post more and more content up there. And so if you're tired of watching Netflix and you want to try something educational, you can always jump on here and be able to look at all of the different content and the speaking sessions around Marketo content that you can use for you and your business. An update on something that we've been announcing over the past several, I think a couple of months now, actually, about Adobe Summit. And Warren mentioned this the other day in the slides, and I think another Marketo user group leader mentioned we had the wrong date on the slides historically. And so just want to update that the correct date for Adobe Summit is April the 27th and the 28th, 2021. One thing we did not have wrong was that the event is still free. So it used to be $2,000 to be able to attend Adobe Summit, and then you still have to pay for your flight in and your hotel and all of your sundry expenses. Those are non-existent because we're not traveling, but then also your admittance into the actual event is also free as well too. So there's content not just on Marketo, but also on marketing content as well too, and in the overall strategy of marketing communications, and then also on the rest of the Adobe Experience suite of products too. So if you want to learn things about Adobe Analytics, or if you want to learn about content management or Sensei, their AI product, all of those are sessions that you're able to get through here. If you're interested, you go to summit.adobe.com, and all of the current correct information will be located on that website. Okay, and then let's just dive into it, guys. So, lots of interesting things on the calendar here this month. And so looking back on it, I've broken these into different sections here, and I had the order reversed, but I thought we might go chronologically. And then just starting out, really, I think the first thing to note, and this is something that Warren, really interested that, you and Chloe have expanded upon in Europe is kind of a concept that Sandy and Inga here in New York had built upon office hours and having kind of open discussions and kind of ad hoc Q&A sessions. So can you kind of talk through kind of what are office hours and kind of how those have expanded out globally since their inception, at least in the Marketo user group space?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel it's like that safe space to bring any of your problems. So some of them are recorded, some of them are not. We chose to record our one because we had a bit of hybrid. So our January European Marketo User Group, we invited John, Veronica, and let me see, and Andrea. That's it. So we had a full European user group. So we invited them to speak. So it was a bit of a hybrid because it was nice to, like you said, give it back to our community. So they brought their different experiences. But really, it's just a safe space to answer questions. And you tend to find, particularly at the beginning of the year, when people are, and you kind of theme it around updating your Marketo and your checklist and things like that, that natural discussions tend to come out. So we thought that was a really good thing to do in January. And it's the same with Sandy's and Inga's New York mug. You'll tend to go down really interesting rabbit holes of conversation. And so that's what we sort of aim to do at the beginning of January, where it was, I felt, most relevant to do so, because as people were just scratching their head and kind of getting back into things and where to attack first.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to kind of see how, there are a few different nuances between the different ones. So, let me pull the slide back up here a second here. But Sandy and Inga historically in 2020 did quick half an hour sessions, and they were designed to be very small groups, and you could ask them whatever questions you wanted to, and then they would just take those and work with them. One thing that I noted in January is now they're expanding that to 45 minutes. So there's an extra 15 minutes of content that's there. Becca, Helen, I think one or both of you have been to some of the office hours this month, right? What were some of the observations that you saw in the New York one?
Well, first off, they're asking for a question actually ahead of time. So when they send out the confirmation email, you can actually email Inga your questions beforehand so that they'll have an idea of maybe any questions that they can consolidate. But some of the topics ranged from, leads in Salesforce, but not having them in Marketo. How do you set that up? Another topic where we're creating, what is the best practices around setting up like a no reply type of email, and then also talking about attribution upon form submissions. And it was really neat to see Stanford really work through some of those like nitty gritty query string and UTM parameter questions, but also from a high level of like, if you're not a cereal company, don't set a no reply email. So that was.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one actually. And then I thought that something that was kind of interesting there so one of the things we're going to talk about here is the January 21st update for that Marketo provided. And when you really read through the release notes, there's always a lot of mentions. They're always consistently adding things into the product roadmap about API development. And who better to really give you insights on that than Sanford Whiteman, right? So it's kind of neat to hear them talk through that in their last office hour.
Yeah, and I feel that this whole idea that super talented people, like top talent, is available out there, and you can go and ask. Like, this whole concept is undersold. Like, we really need to draw. Like, I really want more people to know about that, and like just run your idea by these people. Run your like concepts or like whatever you, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's really like, I wish that resource would be utilized more and more
Yeah.
across all different, like as you're saying, like corners, or not just Marketo community, but just like marketing technology.
I think it's good to know too. I think you've mentioned this a bunch of times too, that nobody's ever been criticized in these discussions, by the way, like even if you come in with a rudimentary question. So one thing that I want to note here is, Japan is adding in their Marketo user group session. So you'll note at the end here on January 29th, they actually have a separate, they call them subcommittees in Japan. So they have a subcommittee for Marketo foundations. It was just about like, what is a token, right? And I think you guys had a session like this recently in the Europe office hours too. I think that was part of your discussion too, wasn't it? About tokens and how to use them and kind of what your favorite tokens are, things like that. No?
Yeah, I think that's a well-covered topic. I think we did it a couple of months ago as well, but it's really useful to learn how other perspectives on there. I would also say, while we're just touching on that last bit of the New York mug and just touching on Ellen said, is that I find Sanford, and this is personally in the comments when you read it, a little bit intimidating. But then when you speak to him in person, he's the nicest guy in the world. He's super helpful, and that was really like. And as a result of having a conversation with him, like we managed to almost automate some like 80% of campaign ops, like through a big project that we're running, and it was just being able to bring that to Sanford. So he's also super helpful. So I just wanted to add that as well.
I think another group of super helpful people that it's worth mentioning too is that Auckland group. So Grace and Josh in Auckland in New Zealand have been great about being able to produce really well produced content from a video perspective. That's from Josh's videographer background, but also kind of they're both extremely experienced users in Marketo, and so they have this wonderful kind of combination of having a high experience level, but then also being able to kind of package and reframe the way that they explain some of these highly technical concepts into ways that a lot of people can use, like business stakeholders and people that aren't the technical leaders in their organizations. You can watch a lot of those on the YouTube channel, and it makes perfect sense because of the way that they explain that. So all three of those are office hours in different geographies, so that no matter where you are on Earth, you'll always have an office hour that's within your time zone that you can access reasonably within business hours for you wherever you're located.
And I also want to mention that it's mind-boggling that we had 3 Japanese Marketo user group within 1 month. Can you be like, I'm just thinking, it's like I would have one here in Ashburn, Virginia, one in DC, and one in Maryland. It's like so close, but it is clearly there is a huge need. And I actually watched some of Japanese because it was really interesting to see how they are like doing whiteboarding. They were like truly solutioning. They were like showing there is like some flow charts and stuff like that, and they were talking through that, and they were like quite a lot of people, and it was like very intensively like interacting with each other. I feel that it says that we're getting into very instrumental approach to those Marketo user groups. It's not just like speaking, like just talking wide and broad. We're truly trying to resolve certain questions, answer, like be practical, provide some guidelines. And it's also saying that like just generally speaking, like it's going it's happening not only in US and in English speaking world, it's other worlds as well, right? And it's amazing how productive, how quickly they're picking it up and just like running with that.
Yeah. That was a really good one. I actually really am so grateful. If you're in Japan and watching this, by the way, welcome. And I apologize that I don't speak Japanese, and I don't think anybody else on the call here does either. But we all respect the work that you are doing in your user groups, and that is the largest user group by far on Earth. So it's great to see the actual content being produced, and they now have a YouTube account. So if you're in Japan and you want to catch up on on-demand content, there's a separate channel on the YouTube channel that has all that Japanese content. And I noticed too that that's happening in Europe as well too. So Warren, your co-host in France, Chloe, and Arthur in Paris, and then also Britt. So we have Britt on here talking about Munich, Germany, and she's I'm seeing her kind of message me directly a little bit more so than I have historically, from some of the work that Kelsey Bork at Adobe has been kind of presenting globally. So could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in France and Germany, and what's happening on that side, guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a French and German speaker, but I know that I've spoken with Brit a couple of times, and she's really looking for inspiration, and she's looking to really structure her user groups. So the one that happened in January, she had a really nice structure to it. She had the Marketo updates. She had a bit about the conversational marketing. So it's another drift presentation, but okay. And then she had something about the new year and everything done. So and then a user tips and exchange for the beginning of January. So if you're a German speaker, I think she's got slides for that. You should be able to message her. She's on the Atomos user group. That's where I kind of speak to her on. If you need a copy of those slides and updates, if you're a German speaker, but she's always got a really nice structure and flow to her user groups.
Yeah. Yeah, so it'd be neat. It's neat to see that they're talking about the Marketo updates. I see Phoenix on here is talking about the UI, and then I think Seattle also had a session. There it is, about the product releases. So can we all jump into a session here about the product release notes? So this is a January 21st update. What do we know about the product releases from the different conversations that have happened here? There's a lot of they always do these updates, I think once a quarter, and they affect a number of different touch points around Marketo. So what was changed in this January 21st update?
Well, I can start. So obviously the new UI is coming, and we don't know when exactly it's coming. And every single company will have their own kind of cutoff date. For example, we are not still introduced to this new UI, but I know that some already have it. And it's just kind of like, don't panic, and let your users kind of be comfortable, and just know that this goes here and this goes there. And like, if you have any questions, this is how you want to address them. And this is a little bit of information that you want to share upfront. So this kind of like, stay calm and keep marketing message. I think that's helpful. And it's about like truly user onboarding and upskilling, training, keeping everyone informed, hopefully before it happens.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some small things I would say, just because I think the rollout has happened for Marketo instances that have partitions. So in that respect, those are commonly larger instances that have maybe slightly decentralized or heavily centralized structures, at which point the smaller points about not being able to drag and drop become more important, because you have a lot of varied users in there that might be confused about that situation, or might lose things, or not necessarily recognize how they would find something elsewhere. So it's those smaller things that are going to come up. And to Helen's point,
I would also mention that the whole idea that Marketo is becoming Marketo engaged, and it's all like intertwined in the suite, right? Like Adobe family like products of family of products, right? And sometimes there is some kind of, probably all of us or many of us had a question from our big bosses coming and saying like, okay, can I just like load it all and have them all across everything and it's all getting connected? And you're kind of like, no, you can't. And like, we don't know when it's going to happen. So I really feel that this is something that we as market or admins, owners, whatever, experts have to own, kind of like not to let this message just like go into people's mind without explaining that, like, well, first of all, it's not immediately available. What is available and how exactly you want to use it? Because there might be some assumptions made that, you will have to kind of deal with. So you'd rather be upfront. And it's kind of like, yes, yeah, it looks nice on a chart. In reality, it might be much more challenging, right? that's something we have to be very careful about.
Becca, has your instance been upgraded to the new user interface yet?
We only have one partition. We have the option to switch over to Marketo Sky, but right now I have everything defaulted in Classic. But working towards using Sky more and more frequently is the goal. And anyone that I'm teaching, I'm trying to also teach Marketo Sky too. So.
Okay. We have I have one client that has the new unified experience, and so it's been a process. It's been interesting to kind of see some of the iconography, and a lot of that's going to be updated. But I do want to just kind of show, if you are interested in seeing what this update is all about, if you go to docs.marketo.com, there's always a section in here in the release notes. And so if you click on January 21st, you'll see some of the release notes. The last office hours in New York, Sandy and Inga actually went through these in more detail. But you'll see, I think one of the big things that came up, and this isn't directly as part of this release, is that Forms 1.0. I mean, that's a long time ago, but if you still have any legacy forms that are on your that are in your instance anywhere, you really want to go back and republish those and start migrating those to Forms 2.0. I doubt this will be an issue for very many people on this call, but there are always people that have really old legacy issues, especially if they're really older instances that I've come across where we have to go back and kind of do an audit and check and see if that comes up. So I highly encourage you to scroll through this and take a look at it. And then there's usually an Adobe product. The product team has a webinar once a quarter as well that kind of talks through these updates as well. So definitely worth taking a look at that as well.
I'm just going to call out something that Hunter mentioned in the comments as well about reaching out to your customer success manager. So I know a couple of people have been caught a bit off guard by their instance just suddenly flipping next morning. So definitely be proactive there and reach out to your customer success manager to find out. So that tip was also from JD Nelson, who mentioned that as well in the Champion Slack group.
Nice. Okay, that's a good point. Okay, okay. Let's flip back to the to some of the other events that we had happen off here. Where should we go next? So we talked a lot about educational stuff. Let's talk about the virtual escape room, and there's social elements, right? So the user groups, we have a combination of kind of learning knowledge and then also kind of social elements too. So part of it is, and part of it, and the third part of that is really the technical knowledge as well. But Cleveland running a virtual escape room. Anybody take a look at some of the posts around that, and love that idea. That's kind of neat.
I saw some of the screenshots from that, and it's certainly just just another way to bring together that community thing. So a lot of the tight knit groups that are often have really in-depth conversations, I feel like that's just a nice community spin on it. I saw lots of smiles in the screenshot. I think Chelsea Kiko posted a screenshot of that. I think that's where I saw. Yeah, no, that's certainly interesting. I think we'll see a lot more like that as people try to balance out the community side along with actually the learning. Because one of the things you referenced, Michael, last year, that is actually there's quite a lot of similarities whilst there's different spins on it. If you now search for a particular topic in the mugs.marketo.com, that will just bring up all the events associated with that particular topic. So you'll see a lot of similarities now. So I feel like there's going to be more of those kind of just interesting problem solving and then prompting discussion kind of things going on.
Yeah,
and I remember there were some of those like fun kind of events last year, right? When people were like going totally, and it's not just like a happy hour, but there was some kind of creativity around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think there was the llama one as well. The llama, when they invited a llama to the, I can't remember what it's, what's it? It's got a really good name. Can't remember.
It was goat. It was
yeah,
right? Goat to meeting.
Goat to webinar, I think it was, and you invite like a llama or a goat on your Zoom meeting, or your webinar, and sensible business model. Wish I'd thought of that.
And you always had the background. It's funny. We were just reminiscing the other day about 2020. Warren and I were, and we were talking about like earlier on, right? We always thought that, this was like Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, except we were going to all the Marketo user groups, and we're used to have all these different background images and Zoom overlays that you'd bring into your meetings, and everybody'd be like, who is that guy? He looks like an animated character or something like that, which I thought was kind of a fun element to it. You know, these are learning sessions, but there's also kind of a socializing piece of it too, that you know that really comes into play with this. So I expect to see more of that, more pub nights, more things like that, more trivia events. That the folks in Texas seem to know how to do this really well. So hats off to you guys in Texas. Thank you. Um, okay, let's dive into some of the other pieces here. So I did a lot of, admittedly, like January, I think Becca and I were just talking about this earlier on today, but one of the challenges in January is that there's always this holiday hangover where everybody's coming back to the office on the first week of January, and there's sort of, it takes a little bit of time to get up to full speed. So I always felt it was really important to be able to start putting Marketo user group sessions in place in December before everybody goes into holiday. And maybe to my own detriment, because I wound up kind of running and hosting 3 different Marketo user groups this month. This has been a busy month from the Marketo side of things. So I don't know, Becca or Helen, which are you going to want to kick off? And I don't want to talk about my own sessions, but I think both of you were at different ones, right? Helen?
Yeah, so well, first of all, I want to say that it's very interesting because like look up every single event because I wanted to understand what was happening there. And I can certainly say that we absolutely should encouraging all user groups to post their videos, because like going back and forth and like asking for like, can you like, it's like, just like, to be realistic, it's not going to happen, at least not for everyone who wants to see those. The second part is I would love to see some kind of like even human comments and notes, and like I'm not sure if Baby is encouraging this, but like you're saying, I would love to see those screenshots or pictures or like whatever it can be, just like to get this like spirit of what was happening. And I'm taking it as a note for myself. Like I would certainly try to do that whenever we are running Washington DC user group. And also I saw that there were kind of like, if we are talking about subjects and like topics that we discussed, we as Marketo community, obviously there were like a huge emphasis on the community, like what is Marketo community, marketing community, marketing technology community, and like all things around that. And I believe that's very important for us because first, like the whole last year was about community, and it seems like this year is also going to be about community, and we'll see how it's going to be developed and like what trends we'll see. Another thing that there were a few meetings where it seems like, oh, we just like getting together, we'll talk, we'll brainstorm on what we're going to discuss this year. And I feel it's also important because if you don't know your audience, or you truly don't feeling connected very well with those people, just throwing out some kind of ideas and like back that people are not probably very like excited to see, well, probably not the best idea. So I love the whole kind of approach that let's just like get together and talk what we want to talk, like Q&A, like whatever you have, like let's resolve it and move on. And another kind of like, I believe it's easy, but might be very helpful. There is a specific topic, like for example, this UI updates, or there is like something related to like tokens, like or something. And the person who is a professional, who is like very experienced in this particular aspect, just like explaining and like just like talking about through this. So those like very different 3 types of events. And for example, for myself, I was always afraid of like, if I don't have a bright speaker, no one will show up. I had like this like true fear, especially when it was not virtual, but like in person. It never happened. We always had people. But like the whole idea that some Marketo user groups were running with the whole like, oh, we don't have topics, we just like showing up. I was like, I don't understand how it can be. But like I feel every single region, and that's the whole idea of Marketo user groups, that you have your like, you know what's happening there, like you own in that area, you know those people and how they prefer. Do they prefer to sit and listen, or do they prefer just like hang out together? And now it's all virtual, but I still feel this like kind of regional specifics can be still there. And yeah, and I certainly like going back to this community and all kind of related, like all kind of conversations related to that. I believe it's very interesting what is happening, like truly, because there are so many communities developing. It's a Marketo, it's Mops Pros, it's a Mo, or how would they call it, marketing
Mo pros.
professional.
Yeah.
Yes, Mo Pros,
Yeah.
and there are many more. And it feels like we are really like shifting. It's like it's layers and layers and like store. It's just like a lot of different things happening, and it's overwhelming, especially as everyone is tired of Zoom and like virtual and everything. At the same time, I feel that maybe it's about like just get connected what seems relevant to you, get connected to those people, and you don't have to be everywhere. But even if you have this choice, and even if you random to join one or another, it still will give you a very solid understanding of what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. We have this interesting thing that I've noticed last year as we're going into lockdown, where before I was named the Marketo chair for the Mo Pros, I really spent a lot of time going to other types of communities to complement this isn't designed to replace the Marketo user groups at all, but there's the knowledge of how to use Marketo, but then there's also the knowledge of where to use Marketo in a business. Where does the marketing strategy sort of meet the actual tactical tools and the technology part of things? So I've found a lot of value. I became a lot more active in the American Marketing Association, and I signed up for a membership there and their special interest groups, the Mo Pros. We are launching a whole series of things in the Mo Pros that are going to be really exciting. Actually, we have a whole different group of people, of content providers, of subject matter that really complements. So if you're actively attending these Marketo user groups, there's a whole series of things that we're launching. We talked about the Mo Pros ambassadors. We have a whole series of teaching sessions and training sessions designed. Mike Rizzo, our founder in that group, had kind of said we're trying to elevate all of the other marketing operations people in the space. And, to what you're saying, Helen, about finding really bright people to share their experiences. Becca, with where you're located geographically, right? The population is not as dense from where the rest of us are at, right? So this virtual learning and virtual community, I have to imagine, is probably more prominent from where you're at. Is that fair to say? And how are you kind of leveraging those virtual communities in your own life to kind of round out your experiences as a digital marketer?
That is very fair to say. We are much more spread out, and especially with weather during the winter, it is much harder for people who are normally used to traveling anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half to get to an in-person meeting. It really does strain that during the winter. So we've actually even before quarantine, we had gone back and forth with volleying between in-person meetings and virtual meetings just to help with the people that are traveling farther distances. But I definitely see more of a community with those that are remote or working from home and needing that connection. There's a lot more coffee chats. There's a lot more Slack messages. There's a lot of just being able to kind of like Helen said, there's something for everyone. So I've been attending much more user group meetings just based on whatever their presentation topic is going to be for that specific user group. I'm going to actually sign up for the Houston one tomorrow. It's based on 5 things five things I would have wanted to know about Marketo. So things that I am interested in learning about and connecting with others, because I am obviously not in an office space. So I need to be able to connect with others. And we're finding that here in Iowa as well. Just because we're located further apart doesn't mean that we still can't figure out ways to communicate, whether that's, like I said, via coffee chats, over Zoom or Slack. So it has been challenging, but I think it's going to continue to get better. And the other thing I was going to mention was with the power of community marketing, I wasn't able to attend it live, but I got the recording, was able to watch that. And I loved being able to hear the different perspectives from Johnny, Ashley, and Mike was the last one. And they just how they are rounding out all of their ideas on community marketing. It's just everyone's taking a whole new spin on this so that it's still fresh and engaging and inviting, and we're not all going to burn out on attending Zoom calls and meetings and webinars. So it's been good to see that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Board.
I was going to say, I'm not going to lie, I do miss attending the London Marketo User Group in person. That was always fun. And the first time I went, my first user group was that London Marketo User Group, where I traveled down in person. I was actually really nervous because I'd never been to a user group. So this was like last year, I think in about January or February. And just what the bit that we'll miss, like I've missed about those, is just those side conversations. That's always more difficult, I think, than on the virtual side. So I actively now just chat people if they have an interesting point, and you can have these side conversations within the Zoom meetings. But I do miss like the London Marketo User Group. I can't wait to go to that again.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know that if I look through this list of MUG meetings, I felt like the one that I went to that feels the most like that to me is Raleigh, New York to a certain degree, but Raleigh is a longer session, and they're just open, and you can you know, they just spend time in there. Caroline and Rich run that one, and you know, those are the people that I get to chat with a lot, and they're because they're not set in terms of we're going to do 60 or 90 minutes and then hang up. They just basically leave it open once a month for everybody to kind of chat and talk with until everybody's ready to go. And you know, there's a lot of talent that's there. Kimberly Gallett's the visible Marketo User Group leader, lives in that area as well too. So she's always there, and you see crossovers. If you think that the power of community marketing that Becca was talking about, you know, Ashley Ward is in charge of, was our speaker at that session. She's in charge of Lean Data's customer marketing. And Lean Data is a LaunchPoint application partner. But they have their own community called OpStars. And Kimberly is not just the visible Marketo User Group leader, but also was a winner of the OpStar of the Year last year in that community, and is also moderating sessions for that community as well too. So you see a lot of crossover. Johnny Flanagan was also a winner the previous year in that community. And if you go to some of those communities, I think we talked about Scott Brinker's MarTech community at the beginning of this, that, you know, you'll see a lot of familiar faces that are in the Marketo space. And so there's part of the learning on this, right? I highly encourage anybody who's looking to learn Marketo to also learn marketing communications and digital marketing. You know, I spend a lot of time in the digital marketing forums. I have a digital marketing lab membership, for example, and I still find that the presenters there give a lot of information. So complement what you see here. You know, the alumni community session that we're running, the other sessions. I'm going to skip over to the session because Becca had mentioned the Houston one with Andy Caron, who had also mentioned when she was in the Roundup with us several months ago about, you know, we said, you know, who have you learned the most from this month? And she mentioned somebody in, I think it was BOMA, if I remember correctly. There's a different marketing operations community that she belongs to. And so we're like, well, what was that? And I took a look at it. It was really interesting. They provide a lot of great content that complements what we do in the Marketo User Group space. So, you know, transitioning this, talking a little bit about February and what's coming up here. And admittedly, we have 5 minutes left. So just around the room, which one of these sessions are you most interested in attending that you're signing up for right now? Helen?
Well, I'm a big fan of Andy.
Yeah,
so I will be just joining. I want to listen her voice and energy. And I will be probably interested in February 10th, San Francisco. Again, it's kind of, it's just like resonating with my, I don't know, philosophy. So yeah, would love to.
Becca, you said you were doing Houston. Anything else of note on this list that kind of whets your appetite?
Definitely going to the Houston one. I'm excited to hear Andy's take on this. I did want to mention in the community, in Marketo community, that the trending blog right now is actually with Kimberly, and it's about just basic field management, but that's another great place to go and find people who are willing to share their expertise and to also do it in a way that's a blog post, but also in a video format. Magana actually, I think, posted this. So it's just champion tips and tricks with Kimberly, and that's trending on the community side.
Nice. Warren, how about you?
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in February. But I am super interested in kind of reaching out, like you said, to maybe not just Marketo user groups, but having a look for some inspiration that I can bring to those other user groups. So I actually don't know where I'm going to go in February, but I'll appear somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, I actually want to echo, the sentiment about San Francisco, and Amy Goldfine to me is one of those people that brings a lot of interesting content that is differentiated from all of I rarely see a piece of content from Amy that has been repurposed somewhere else. That a lot of it is original, very thoughtful pieces that she's bringing into the conversation that balance out with everything else that we see on the list. So I'm grateful for that, and that's an interesting automate your marketing automation. And also, hats off to Amanda in Houston. She's one of the first people that will message you and be, when we set up the user groups, oh, I'm interested in that. How can I participate? I want to do this speaker. I want to do that. You always see two, at the least one, but usually she'll have two different sessions that she'll be running in Houston. And so it's impressive to see that they have a regular cadence of sessions that are coming up here. And then, that the Japan user groups are already, posting and working in advance. So they have a great velocity of sessions that are coming through there. And then also, just a note, we will be running this Marketo User Group Roundup again at the beginning of March. So if you can't make all of these and you're interested in more of them, then sign up for the February MUG Roundup, and we'll continue to go with this format. Okay, and then before we close it out and just do some parting announcements, anything else that I'm missing here that we haven't covered in the last month that we want to talk about that's happened in the user group community?
I think you called out the Japanese Marketo user group, but they had to do a massive transition over to the mugs.marketo.com, didn't they, because of the size of it. So I think that is a couple of thousand, something like that. They are the biggest user group globally. But I just thought I'd chuck in that little fun fact. But
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Kelsey's doing in Latin America, and it sounded she alluded to that at our year end last month. So neat to see that. Okay, so we're out of time here, but just a couple of things. If you missed any of these and you want to catch more of them, then by all means join the YouTube channel. And if you are watching this on YouTube, on the bottom right of your screen, you'll see a white Marketo logo. Click on that and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell icon to get all notifications of any new videos that come up. In the meantime, may all who enter our Marketo user group exit as friends. And so we consider you all friends for attending today. Thank you for that. And we hope to see you at next month's Marketo user group roundup on that should be March the 1st, actually. So we're looking forward to seeing you there, and we'll cover off everything in February. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys. I know.
Bye.